No, wait, we're still going live out there in the real world. Um, Let me check to make sure. The problem with Twitch last week was definitely StreamYard, and they sent out an email about that. So,
Oh, really?
um,
Okay. Oh, it was
it was,
StreamYard? Okay.
yeah, it wasn't our fault.
All right.
But since we streamed in multiple places now, it was easy to pick up the. Pick it up. Okay, I believe we are good.
It's live.
So, Edward, you can get us started.
All right. So I'm Edward this week. 5 seconds of silence, and then we'll get started. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights show. This is August 31st. We have a lot to talk about today, I hope. Edward's not here, so I kind of have to take up the slack, or as someone suggested a little bit ago, I am Edward. I don't know how I'm going to pull that off.
Too much hair.
I think I have to do this a few times to show my biceps or whatever. And we have Gary with us, right? Or is Gary playing another part?
Gary's playing the role of Frank.
I'm Frank.
Oh, Gary is Frank, and Frank is Brody?
I'll be Rod this week.
You'll do me. Okay. All right. It would be kind of cool if we could switch backgrounds, and that would work out pretty well. You probably could do that. I don't know. You still have that green background. But welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, as always. Truly appreciate it. We actually have a super special guest this week. Plus, we also have a guest host in Frank Jr., I guess, or as we like to call him, just kind of good old Gary. So welcome, Gary.
Thank you.
Kind of want to go around the horn just a little bit. We do have Kara here with us tonight. We're going to introduce her, or at least allow her to introduce herself here shortly. But as we always kind of like to do, try to figure out what we've all been doing for the past week, right? So Rod, what have you been up to for the past week?
Well, for the past week, I want to tell you, I did get my SC 100 certification plaque in. Did you get yours?
What?
You get a plaque?
How did you get a? Did Maria give that to you, and I have to contact her now about something?
Look at you guys. No, it's actually GCF.
Oh wow! Oh, nice job.
Just kidding. I renewed my certification, and
Okay.
when you renew that certification, they send you the course material again.
Yeah.
I took it 4 years ago, so it's actually good to go through that content again, and also make me think more about the threat hunting capabilities within inside MDE and Sentinel.
So how is that renewal? How is that renewal process, by the way?
You have a choice to take the test, or you have to get 32 or 36 continuing education credits, and I had them in the first year, so I was just waiting for that.
I was kind of hoping eventually they would just ask for like 32 customer signatures. Yeah, they did the job, and that would be enough to renew you. I think it would be awesome.
Yeah. No, I didn't mind doing the the webcasts and all that other fun stuff. So I don't.
Yeah.
That was just nothing
That's
for me.
neat.
But I really enjoyed listening to the audio and going through the labs again and see how they've changed it in the past 4 years. And definitely,
sure.
Definitely, I'm looking forward to discussing this in our Sysmon episode upcoming. So.
Sysmon episode. Boy.
What is that one?
That's I don't think that exists or ever will. Hopefully not Sysmon. That's just a barb. That's a barb. Sysmon's an expensive option for collecting data. Frank, what did you do this week?
Oh, I'm Frank.
Yeah.
Well, I had lots of fun, actually. Not security related. I volunteered at my old town's arts and crafts festival. Had 600 different vendors there. It's very well received.
Oh, wow.
First time they did it in a couple of years due to COVID. Nice 2-day event. Then I got sick on Monday.
Isn't that kind of always the case?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think traveling, I was in Redmond a couple weeks back, had a couple other trips recently, and yeah, sure enough, seems like I always get sick like the day before I travel or something like that. And of course, when you travel and you kind of appear sick these days, people, they treat you like a zombie. They're like a leper or something. They're trying to walk away from you. It's pretty interesting. But I own it, right? I just start coughing on everybody and everybody gets out of my way just a little bit.
That's it. You sit by yourself that way.
So how many people were there, Frank, would you say?
Oh, I forget. I think they estimated at 500,000 through the 2 days.
Wow. That's crazy. And where are you located again?
I'm just out of Raleigh. So the festival was in Cary, North Carolina.
So Mayberry, essentially.
Yeah, it wants to be, but it's trying to grow up as well.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just take Andy Griffith characters next time instead of each other. That would be good.
Mayberry is up the road from me,
Yeah.
Mount Airy.
Yeah. That would be cool. I've been through there several times. It's really awesome. Really awesome country. So myself, I'm actually trying to do the least amount of work as possible since I'm going on vacation starting Friday. I do have a couple things that I absolutely
would say I never do that. I work hard all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
See, I wish I could do that. Just the nature of my profession for the past 30 years. I've never been able to disconnect. I can't do it. Absolutely cannot do it. But it works out. It's fine. But I am going on vacation, taking the entire family. This is the first entire family vacation we've had for about 10 years, going to Panama City Beach, even taking the grandbaby. This will be his first trip to the beach. So that's going to be pretty awesome. So I am trying to do the least amount of work possible. Interestingly, just before we got on the podcast, I was afraid I might have to be a little late, but there's a customer war room type situation going on right now. So but that's all taken care of. That seems to be under control. I'm kind of watching Teams at the moment. Tomorrow, I'm actually delivering must-learn KQL workshop prep to a bunch of customer engineers tomorrow that they're going to take it and start delivering it to our customers.
Nice.
Which is kind of cool. So I have about 50 of those going to be on the call tomorrow, and we're recording. So hopefully we'll start deploying that to our customers here shortly, get them more comfortable with KQL. Also have to record a session on Sentinel on Friday for the Azure Back to School. I don't know if you ever heard of this. It's actually pretty neat. We had Dwayne on a couple months back. He writes books. He's a trainer, MCT, and he actually runs this Azure Back to School virtual series. So I got to record that before. That is absolutely the last thing I do. Yeah.
I guess that's what MVPs do, huh?
Well,
how would you know, Frank?
Or Rod? Yeah, sorry.
All right, Rod, I sent you an email about KQL. You never replied to me.
Who? Me?
Yes.
Oh no, we replied. I replied, didn't I?
No.
When did you send it? Right before? Is it in my inbox?
No, I sent it to you like on Friday, talking about KQL patterns. You never even replied.
We were talking about. So maybe I missed something. I was on mobile. You know how Outlook on mobile is. It's kind of a little weird. So maybe I did miss something. If I did, I apologize. We were talking about, which I think is kind of an important thing to bring up. It seems like at Microsoft, from a learn perspective and certification, we focus on KQL for incident response, and that's it. It's in our SC series exams and learn modules, but there's almost absolutely nothing for all of our other Azure services. And Frank and I have had this discussion a lot.
That's why you've heard me say many times on here, so Rod, don't you think KQL should be run by every single Azure admin out there?
Yeah.
And so, I've been in those meetings where it's been shot down on the Azure admin side of, and it is, KQL is definitely looked at as a Sentinel thing and a security analyst thing.
Yeah, data science and stuff like that, right? But it is absolutely necessary to learn for anything, any Azure service. And based on our discussion in that email. I kind of started down that route last week, and I don't know if have you ever seen that TV series, the comedy How I Met Your Mother?
Oh, yeah.
Barney's like, challenge accepted. So that's my goal for within the next 6 months, is to ensure that we get KQL in everything. Just like security should be in everything, KQL should be in everything. So we'll see how that works out.
Well, there's a sequel exam. Maybe you should come up with a KQL exam.
So I don't know if it deserves its own exam. I just believe that it should be littered throughout everything, where it's smart, where it's where it should be, not make it obtrusive where people are like, why did I have to learn that? But make it applicable. So we'll see. That's my goal. That's one of my goals. That's personal goal. That's not a team goal. If my manager hears that, he'd be like, Rod, you got to focus on our team stuff.
So, one of the things that I pushed on the KQL side is that they should have a basic understanding of it, not the in-depth understanding of, everything about KQL. And even at that level, I was rejected in those conversations. So, which was kind of annoying. So my email to you is another challenge for you, to extend your must-learn KQL to include KQL patterns.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is that, when I write KQL learning stuff, I'm more focused on the process of data discovery versus the end product, which should be when it's a more complex query, right? So, I think that where I'm missing stuff is providing you're going to have a situation where you're parsing JSON and then you're actually joining it to another or whatever. So just having those, because once people know the template, know where the data is and what they want to do with it, they know the keywords, they just don't have the KQL templates to actually do that build out. Except now, don't they have something in MDE where they actually have like a designer or something like that? What's the deal
they
with
do have, and it's I hate to say it, but it's very similar to what Splunk has. So you just literally click on your columns to create your queries, and it's absolutely awesome. And in fact, I was looking at it this week, and it's a great way to actually create your KQL queries that you can copy and paste and use other places. So it's pretty awesome. And my guess is that we'll see that other places in the very near future. So,
do you think it's worth the time to put together KQL patterns for complex queries?
I do, but I think more in relation to creating functions, right? So taking a lot of that stuff, those use cases, and creating a function for whatever that thing is, I think it's kind of ideal for that type of situation. You know what I mean? And if you look now, we also have the KQL query packs. And that's very similar. So it's kind of topical based, right? Solution based. So I think there's definitely some areas. It's just once people kind of figure out what it is that they want to go look for, then they kind of need to know the process of how to get there. So yeah, absolutely. If that answers that question, I don't know. All right.
You never get back to me, Edward. You never get back to me.
But I will. Well, you never take me to lunch, or I'm sitting there at the lunch table and you never show up. So
you're not the only one I do it to. Go ahead.
So we do have a guest this week. I don't have as much to talk about or say as the real Edward does. So I'm going to turn it over to our actual guest tonight, because I think this is pretty awesome. I had mentioned this to a couple people. I thought this would be absolutely interesting, and we'll see how this goes. I don't know. We may agree to do this or not. So we have our guest host, Gary, who's been on a show and a good friend of the show, written some books that I've tech edited over the course of the past couple of years. Very awesome, knowledgeable, intelligent Sentinel person. But Gary's manager is on the show with us tonight, and that would be Kara. But I think this is super awesome to have her here. I'd like to absolutely have her introduce herself, tell us what she does, and then we'll kind of dig into that. But Kara also mentioned that Gary is actually writing his review currently
I want everybody to rewind to 5 minutes ago when Gary was saying, yes, I constantly need to be working or whatever he was saying. Now everybody understands why he was saying that.
Yep.
Gary, if you're constantly working, then I'm not doing my job correctly.
Oh,
because you shouldn't be constantly working.
Take that back.
You're a good manager. Hey, well, at least that's what good managers say.
So
Right.
in normal talk, we're basically going to do Gary's job review tonight. Is this what we're saying? Is employment review?
Yeah, we'll crowdsource it. We have some folks asking questions in the chat. They can ask all kinds of questions of Gary or Kara. We can kind of do a live, what we call it, Microsoft. This type of review, or connect is what they call them at Microsoft, which is they're kind of interesting. I don't want to go into great detail because while they're interesting, they're also not fun. No, they're not. Not from anybody's perspective, whether you're actually the manager looking at these things or the person writing these things about yourself. But anyway, let's turn it over to Kara. Kara, welcome. I appreciate it. You coming on tonight. Probably not even knowing what you're getting yourself into, but thank you.
I actually listened to Gary's when he came onto your show earlier, so that
trying to figure out if you made the right choice. And
I'm kind of like, I'm not really sure what to expect in this event tonight, so I did listen to Gary's to give myself a little bit of structure.
So was it? After listening to Gary's,
I was less afraid, but
less afraid. Well, less afraid of the show, but were you okay with hiring Gary at that point? You're like,
Gary was already hired. He was already in. So no, Gary's great. I don't need to do your connect with you right now. We're
okay.
So other than Gary's boss, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. All right. Sure. I'll give you. I'll just start with where I'm at now.
I'll help you.
So there you go. Thank you, Brent. So I have been with Microsoft for 4 years. And ever since I joined the company, I joined as part of our CXE organization. So that's customer experience and engineering. So we're an arm of engineering, and we work with customers to basically unblock them when they've hit a wall. They can't adopt a solution for some reason. They're stuck. There's no documentation, or they're trying to deploy some advanced use case and they're not sure how to do it. Then the field usually asks for CXE to come in and talk to the customer and try to help move that customer forward. But our main goal, since we are part of engineering, is to learn where these gaps are so that we can then remove them from anybody else having hit them in the future. So we do that by, I basically identifying it, maybe doing a workaround, maybe adding it to like a feature request and adding it to the backlog to be built. Maybe it's just a documentation issue and we can go and create a blog. We can do webinars to get that information out there. So that's really kind of like the main objective of CXE, is to unblock customers. And we're doing it so that engineering can be more informed and build things in a way that we know customers are looking for. So that's kind of like the initial high-level overview of CXE. And so Gary is part of our team, the newest member of our team, and he's already got so many customers. Before, when you did it, you said, I don't have any yet, and now you got a lot.
That's right.
So, he's definitely stepping in and helping all these customers. So that's pretty great. So that's the legend, Gary, the legend. That's the high level of what we do in CXE. I'm a manager of the team, and we have 2 teams that are focusing on Sentinel. So we have a team that's based out of the Americas, which is my team. And we also have a team based out of Europe and Asia, which is managed by my peer, Eddie. So, we work as one big team, I think. Gary, you've only been here for a month and a half or whatever. If maybe you can let me know if you feel like that. But
definitely. Have many
it's one big team.
With European counterparts.
Yeah.
And Australia.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Did you have a question, Ron?
Oh,
paused?
no, not yet. I was going to
Okay.
chime in eventually. I didn't know if you were done, but yeah, even my team, right? So I have a small team. I don't know how large your team is at the moment. I have a small team, and in fact, it's a funny story. So I started in this role. It's been a couple of years now. I started in this role and I didn't even have a manager for a year, and I was my only person, sole employee on this team. But now I have a teammate in South Africa. I have one in Australia now, and her, Sarah, right? Yep. She's not quite made it to Australia yet, but she should soon. So yeah, some of the challenges, right, of kind of having international teams, there is definitely a challenge because Sarah likes to talk and she lights up teams about the time I'm about ready to go to bed for the night. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I just want to respond, I'm like Gary, I don't ever want to stop working.
Yeah. Yeah. Working in a global team is definitely a challenge, but I feel like we do a good job of it. I'm always open for new suggestions, but I think it's about just having the right communication channels in place, and Teams is really helpful for that. But it's also about making sure you have the right expectations. So what you just said, which is like typing at night and whatnot, don't expect that, right? Like, so we have to have that team agreement that just because I send you an email on the weekend does not mean you immediately go and respond to that, right? Like, I don't expect that. I sent it to you because it was convenient for me at that time. It doesn't mean that I need you to jump ship and like get right back to me. So those kind of team agreements are really important.
Yep. Well, it's kind of a personality thing too, right? There are those folks that just, I don't know. I'm one of those. I indicators or alerts drive me not really drive me nuts. They're knowledge, but they do kind of drive me nuts, I guess, a little bit. I like to have my inbox clean, and by the time I get to work or try to get to work the next morning. So, except for when Frank sends me messages about KQL pattern, apparently.
Apparently, there's a rule for that, Frank.
Yeah, I think that rule, I may have to disable that rule now that Frank has caught me.
So I was really excited to join Microsoft because I had heard that 4 years ago that there was a SIM in the works. And I came over from a different competitive SIM. So I was a product manager for McAfee's SIM, which was Nitro Security originally. So it was originally a smaller company that got acquired by McAfee. Yeah. Which was acquired by Intel, which was then spun off again by McAfee. The lovely adventures of corporate environment. But I'd been working with SIM for, 10, 12 years there. And then, but the first time I'd actually touched a SIM was like 2001, which is dating myself. But because that wasn't even the beginning of my career. But I was working for a network management company, and they had this goal to, and you guys are gonna, do you ever remember there's something called the FCAPS model? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So they wanted to have like the full FCAPS suite. So they needed a fault management, configuration management, application management, performance management, and security management. And so it was a fault management product as a network management solution. And so that's my actual foundation in tech was from infrastructure and fault management software. That's where most of my experience was before I got into SIM. And they white labeled a lot of those other parts of the FCAPS. And the white label that they had for security was a SIM. And it was IntelliTactics at the time. And so I was the only one I got shipped to. I'll never forget this because I'm technical in theory, and I was a technical trainer. So I had a lot of like hands-on experience at the time, but they actually sent me as the only person that knew anything about the integration and anything about any of it to Ireland to go and deploy it at like this MSSP for a week and a half. And I was like, okay, I can do it. Like, there's no help. I'm on my own. But that was my first exposure to SIM, was that back in the early days when they wanted to try to integrate all of it so they could determine if the fault was caused due to security or was it caused due to some other network infrastructure stuff.
Wow, that's wild. That, man, I tell you what, that harkens me back to my early career and things like that, where you were left to your own devices to try to deploy things, right? I remember being in Louisville, Kentucky, overnight one time to deploy, of all things, OS2 Warp or Lotus Notes on OS2 Warp. So that was a long time ago, right? That was a nightmare. It was a nightmare by itself, but I ended up getting it working. But I remember nights like that. Oh my goodness. It's interesting, going to conferences, talking to folks these days. There's actually a smaller percentage of people that do that type of work anymore, that do that overnight, over the weekend stuff. I think it's obviously a testament to what things like Microsoft has done to help, our customers and things like that. But yeah, I don't see quite that large a percentage doing that anymore, which is kind of neat.
Yeah. And I love how there's so much more you can do virtually now too. And if you think of like earlier on in probably everybody's careers, you had to go there. You had to be like on a plane and go somewhere and do it all. I was a technical trainer for a very long time. And, I used to do all my training classes in person, and I used to have to ship like hardware. We're talking, big giant racks of stuff, right? Yeah. And physically connect everything and, image all my laptops and, physically do everything. All of that. And now it's amazing, like how much is it's so much easier doing everything virtually. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think probably, though, I just sitting here thinking about it, one of those areas that still, I guess, might hinge on that type of situation is kind of security. When people get hit with ransomware or malware or whatever it happens to be, talking earlier about that war room situation the customer has right now. That's absolutely still that type of situation where you have to work kind of 24/7 to try to identify and remediate whatever that thing is. So
Microsoft has a team that does boots on the ground for that, don't they? Or we still do? Or
we do. We do. There are certain criteria that has to be met for that to happen. The unfortunate thing with the one that I'm talking about right now, they don't even have a Microsoft rep. They use our products, but they don't have a Microsoft rep. So we have to, and as Microsoft, we still want to help people, right? So we have to figure out the best way to accomplish that. But yes. So Kara, you have been with Microsoft for 4 years. So you talked about being kind of in security since maybe 2001, but for infrastructure potentially, right?
Yeah.
How did you get into security? How did you get focused? How did that become your focus, I guess?
It's actually a funny thing. So I am probably not alone, maybe on this group of people, but I did not go to university for anything that has to do with where I'm at right now. I went to university for sociology, justice studies, and political science. And the idea was that I wanted to be a lawyer. But this was in the early 90s. And
That's perfect for tech.
Yeah.
It was. So what ended up happening, and I think it's kind of, my husband and I talk about this all the time because he's in tech too, is it was like the timing of me finishing university and then struggling just with jobs. And then I got a job at a tech company in New Hampshire, which you may all have heard of at some point, which was called Cabletron Systems. It was pretty well known in like the 90s, right? And it was a sales job and whatever. So but the thing is they taught you everything, and they actually called it like Cabletron University for a while because the amount of people that they cycled through. And so I learned all about infrastructure and about network management, but I learned, different technologies, and I loved the fact that this company could take anybody, really anybody, and teach them enough technology to be able to have like really, coherent conversations with people and be able to actually physically do all this stuff. Yeah. And I said, that's what I wanted to do. Like I knew I wanted to do that job as a trainer. And so I did sales for a couple of years. But then I went over to tech training and started off really doing the network management training. So that was, and you learn a lot about infrastructure when you're doing management stuff around that infrastructure. But I did that for a long time. Again, the first stint in security was that gig where we were trying to integrate a SIM with a network infrastructure or network management software. But that was it was short-lived, and then SIM kind of came back around, and that was 2008, I think, was when I first got like solely into the security world. When I worked for Nitro, which was originally an IDS company and a database company, and then turned into a SIM. And I loved it. It was like the whole idea. It was very reminiscent of network management in the sense that you're trying to solve a problem. You're trying to figure out identify what issues you need to address. But I loved the process of working with customers and understanding where the challenges were and understanding their use cases, and then hashing it all out with engineering. And every 3 months we'd go out there and spend a whole week just literally diving into everything that we were going to be doing for the next semester, if you will. So it was just a really, really fun process. And that's, now I'm more in a management role, but I still love to hear all the things that are going on now with our Sentinel product as well.
Yeah. Being in management role, do you sometimes miss kind of the getting your hands dirty, hands-on type of stuff, or you're like, nah, I don't care for that anymore?
I love to be technical to the extent that I can, have a conversation about technology to a good depth. I don't feel like you guys are talking about KQL. So for me, KQL, I go and I find like workbook that I like, and then I go and I open it, edit, and I copy it, and then I go and modify. I don't, starting from scratch is not my thing. So I wish I had more time, I guess, dedicated time to stay current on that level. But I think, my role as a manager, my number one priority is the people. Which is why I say, Gary, make sure you budget time for vacations. It's unhealthy to work nonstop. And Rod, finally, that's good that you're actually doing it. So it's hard. It's a balance. I think it's a challenge to be able to make sure everybody is on there doing a really good job on their own personal careers, because that's really what managers are trying to do. They're trying to foster the careers of the people that they're working with, and meeting business objectives. But then to stay technical on top of that can be very challenging, for sure.
Yeah, I've found, at least working for Microsoft, the best managers are the managers that advocate for you, right? Mm-hmm. Advocate for your career and your direction and stuff within your role, but also within Microsoft and stuff. I've been here long enough. It's interesting. I've worked alongside Microsoft for, the better part of like 30 years doing things as a partner in various different ways. And just recently, almost 4 years. So I've been here almost 4 years with Microsoft. And I've been here long enough to see good managers and bad managers, right? That happens everywhere. It's not like it doesn't exist. But yeah, the good managers, they like take you on as like, their person. They're like, yeah, I just love you. I want to get you, as much as you can get from knowledge and perspective and stuff like that. So it's pretty awesome. Sounds like you're an awesome manager.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Gary, I fed that to you. I was hoping you would shake your head.
There's a great quote from the DevOps Handbook. I don't know if anybody's read that one. It says the leader's role is to create the conditions so their team can discover greatness in their daily work. And I would say Kara is doing that.
Oh, thank you.
So we've kind of reversed roles here. I think we're doing Kara's Connect. We do have one question from the audience. Actually, I have a couple things here I'm going to highlight here. But
okay,
there you go. Kara, what would you recommend to a manager of an IT team using or deploying Sentinel? I guess how to manage those individuals, that department, or that security team within that organization, I guess.
Okay, so basically a manager of an IT team and how they would help them and their use and deployment of Sentinel. I think the first thing is to understand what resources exist. We have, this product's been, 3 years or so out? And we've been really trying to make sure that things are available, published content is available. So starting, for instance, with our ninja training, making sure that you're trained, because then things will be less frustrating. There's a lot of potential knowledge gaps. Sentinel's not small anymore, right? Like, it's pretty extensive in what it can do. So I think the recommendation for the team to make sure that they're prepared is to have them attend things like the ninja training, which they can do on their own. Staying current with our tech community blogs and webinars. We've seen that people that attend our webinars use more of the product because they learn more of the product. And so I think it is a constant evolution and finding and making sure that your team has the time to learn this stuff. So whether it's in their, you put it in there as their task, but that's not good enough, block time off to make sure that they have time to get themselves up, prepared. And then I would recommend to make their job easier, and this is a challenge, especially for people that are migrating from like on-prem SIMs, is to know your use cases. What is important? Take your top 5 use cases. So if you can give your team the guidance of what you want them to tackle first, then you're going to be more effective. I've seen, from my experience of people being on-prem, I know this is maybe a bit of a diversion, but when they're on-prem, it's just like throw the data at it, right? We don't care. If it chokes, it chokes. But when you're in, you're not going to hit that scaling challenge. So it's going to be, be purposeful of the data that you're ingesting. Know the use cases, and if you can identify those use cases, your team can start to chip away at the functionality that you want to see coming out, and you can have success faster.
Yeah.
So.
Here's a kind of a clarification, and Kara, this may be your opportunity here to delegate this one to Gary.
Okay.
I can help with this as well, but we can kind of see your whole manager perspective at work here.
Sure.
So pretty awesome.
Sure. Wary of the cost and billing versus the capabilities.
Isn't that the number one topic? Yeah.
It is, so this goes back to my whole point, right? Be purposeful about what you're trying to accomplish. So when you're in an on-premise SIM, you spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars on your appliances and you've deployed them, or millions, it could be whatever, right? And you've tried to spec it out based on what you predict this capacity is going to be. And you can usually, as long as the data's in there, you can then come around and do your use cases. But in the cloud, it's different, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to be paying for whatever you ingest. So making sure that you know which use cases you want to do. And so we've tried, for instance, to do some webinars around this, like, starting with MITRE, right? Like start with the MITRE framework and tell them in the framework. Maybe it's, something about insiders, right? So just like choose something and then try to deploy the environment that you need to make sure you're addressing those challenges that have already been predefined by MITRE. So I think if you're purposeful about the data that you're ingesting and you're thinking about it from a use case first, then the cost will be defensible because you're going to get the output that you're expecting. So that would be my high level summary. I don't know, Gary, if you have anything else you want to add. Yeah,
another piece of that before we kind of turn it over to Gary is this, and I absolutely hear this all the time. And Gary, you can talk to this too. It's awesome to hear that this customer is, they're all in. Hey, we're going to Azure for all this stuff. And in fact, by moving to Azure, a lot of what you just talked about, Kara, that on-prem stuff, you don't have to worry about a lot of that cost from shipping data from on-prem to the cloud. Mm-hmm. It's already going to be in the cloud, right? So there's a piece of that cost is gone. But Gary, you want to chime in there?
The only other thing I would mention is when you're considering the cost, consider the cost savings you already have. You don't have to pay for the hardware. You don't have people managing the hardware. You don't have to worry about patching or getting the OS. So there's an initial savings right there. And then like Kara was saying is, don't keep ingesting everything. Make sure that what you're going to ingest is what you're going to be needing.
Well, and so just kind of chime in just a little bit. Kind of the experience I've had with customers, particularly moving from on-prem and other SIEMs or SIMs, whatever you want to call them. Those other tools, right? Those, we can call them, there's Splunk, there's Logarithm, there's QRadar, that have been historically on-prem. It has been kind of, hey, let's just absolutely collect everything. So we've got all data. We've got these huge data storehouses, and then we can query against it, right? And you don't need all that data. You really don't. In kind of this modern SIEM, modern world, the way where Sentinel sits, there's some machine learning and things built into it where it is intelligent enough to look through that data and find exactly what you're looking for instead of literally needing everything anymore. So a lot of customers, those old tools, I'd call them legacy tools, but they've kind of created some really bad habits for a lot of people, right? It's still kind of the old, we were talking about earlier, the IT operations and things where, that's my server. I'm in charge of this server. This is my stuff. You don't really need everything. It reminds me of the old, what was the Steve Martin movie? He's like, this chair is mine. And this,
The Jerk.
Yeah, The Jerk. You don't really need all that stuff anymore. The technology is good enough to be able to do a lot that the other legacy stuff couldn't do. So you don't have to worry about that.
And I think some of the bad habits with being on premises is that I paid $1 million for this box. I don't want it sitting idle.
Yeah, that's true.
Got all this storage space. I want to use it. So let's push everything we can into it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a different methodology. It's a different mindset, and people need to prepare themselves.
Well, particularly for customers that like this individual say, hey, we're moving all to the cloud. Well, take advantage of the cloud. There's so much opportunity there. You've got compute resources, scalability, elasticity, everything that you can take advantage of. You don't, it does the work for you. Frank, Rod, did you have a question or comment?
I heard the name Jerk. Thought you guys were talking about me. So, since I've been going through this class again, the SAN Forensics 508, and thinking about endpoint and sysmon and everything else, and so this has been coming up. I say collect it all. No, I'm kidding. It really comes down to the use case and what you can do with it and what you can actually pull forensics from the machines if you need to. Okay. So I could do some enterprise scale hunting for indicators just as long as I know that they might actually, be taken off the machine by the attackers. And since I don't really have a good threat hunting team, there's no reason for me to be sending a ton of logs to Sentinel, right? Versus MDE, the first step, and then off to Sentinel, right? If I have a mature threat hunting team, then I would actually want to send more logs like sysmon into Sentinel so they can actually do the hunting from there. So it's also maturity, capability, and also what can you actually access on the endpoint if you need to remotely and quickly to gather the additional information. And there's a lot of tools out there to do that. So it really does come down to the use case and the maturity of the organization and the capability and the access to the endpoints that you might have. It might be cheaper to actually put agents on the endpoint. I know agents are bad. That gives you the remote forensics capability for enterprise-wide, analysis, looking for things when you need to. If you don't have the true threat hunting team to be doing that.
Well, you still kind of need a team, right? Even for those forensics and that data that's returned, you still need somebody to look at that stuff. I'm just thinking from that perspective, shipping the data to Sentinel. There's a lot of intelligence built in there for the analysis of, with the rules and things. It's going to do the work for you. If in a lot of cases, I've worked with some smaller companies, they use Sentinel for that specific purpose. They still want this security component, but they don't have these massive security teams. They send it to Sentinel, and Sentinel will surface or expose the most critical things they need to look at instead of them having to look at literally everything like they used to. So that's just another aspect of that, I guess. Even so, we talked about this last week a little bit as well. Even smaller teams. I delivered a workshop to a IT department of one at one point when I was in the field, and that individual uses Sentinel for everything. It's the state of the Bahamas. He manages everything there and runs Microsoft Sentinel to expose those threats.
Right.
So
I think you need to visit that customer directly.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, I tried. I had to deliver that workshop remotely. Can you believe that?
All right, let's get on to some good questions here.
Okay.
Kara, what are the 3 things Gary can improve?
I need him to be more. I think I need him to joke with me a bit more. He's very serious.
Yeah, he needs to open up a little bit, I guess. We'll have to, I don't know, get him down and tickle him for a little bit. Maybe that'll work.
No.
Okay.
No. Boy, that was uncomfortable.
No. So no, Gary's doing great. I'm not going to do a connect on podcast with Gary.
All right.
So what's the deal with MDE and MDE M365 Defender versus Sentinel? Do you hear a lot of that? Those sort of questions. I mean, what do you get on that?
Don't say versus. It's not versus. Don't
Better
do that.
together.
Yeah. No. So it's interesting because it's like, so I can get into the whole market stuff. So, SIMs have evolved a lot, right? Like, and then there's been all these other competing products, markets but they're all fighting for the same mind share. So UEBA, XDR, SIM, right? They're all literally trying to tackle the same problem from a different direction. And so when you go and you search for SIM plus XDR, you see SIM versus XDR. You don't see a lot of like co-marketing for anybody because it's like they're still fighting for that same mind share. And so I think that, again, we're both trying to address the same challenge that these customers are having, but we're coming at it from different angles. And it's about really finding that sweet spot of how these products can work better together, as you said, which sounds a bit corny.
See,
but we're prepared for that. Microsoft has got all these tools, and it's just a matter of making sure that we can successfully have that really cohesive usage. Really, it's not even about a story; it's about how customers experience it.
You see, I think the Sentinel team on purpose, the bidirectional updating of the cases or the incidents, right?
Yeah.
And then with inside Sentinel, there's this very little link somewhere on the incident screen where you could actually jump over to M365 Defender, right?
Yeah.
It's like they purposely made it small and hidden as possible so they don't let people know that Defender is.
No.
Oh no,
It's-
no,
I don't think.
No,
I
that's
don't think.
not-
I don't
no.
think it's on purpose. I really don't.
We could go back to the 80s with the flashing colors and all that.
yes.
We can do
No,
that.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
are they going to do anything about that? Because I know that a lot of customers don't realize that they can actually jump from the incident with inside Sentinel into Defender. I was kidding about them making it hidden, so
I don't have any like roadmap things I want to necessarily get into today, but there's a lot more cohesion. You can expect a lot more cohesion between the products. There's a lot of engineering effort that's aligned. So it's not two separate engineering efforts, really. It's about, trying to solve those customer use cases as, a collective solution. So
Here's your
and then
link.
what-
Here's your link.
Rod has it up on the screen. A lot of customers
I
miss
see
the
it.
fact that they can actually go there and
Go.
click on that, then jump out to.
If you go to full details, it carries over with you. It's not like it disappears. So it's there. Maybe we could put it in orange or some weird, because everybody loves orange barrels on the highway, right? Maybe if we make it orange, people
Or you
want
can add a feature request to the Share Your Ideas site.
Yeah, Gary's doing a lot with that now. He's triaging those. So if you do that, you'll be speaking directly to Gary.
So Gary, what's your favorite feature that you actually got pushed through that came from a customer? And Kara, from your team too, in general, what were some?
I haven't been here long enough to know that.
Kara,
I've
so
put
how
some
about you?
ideas in that I've seen, so those are going to be my favorites.
Oh, here's a question. You don't have to answer this one, but but if you want to. So we do. There's a way to do that. We don't have any documentation, but there's capability. I'll have to write something up.
Didn't you do somebody? Because when Sarah was on our team, she was helping 2 of our customers that were doing B2C stuff. So
I don't think it was documented, but yeah.
But there's potential on it. If there's a way to follow up with that individual, we can find out what the use case is. Or we already know generally, but there's some work that I think that we can do.
So they should reach out to Gary, right?
Yes, sure.
Absolutely.
They're on our Discord, so
yeah.
Okay.
Gary, you'll have to get on our Discord and.
Oh no. Regular listener, by the way, friend of the show. So don't think it's just some creepy person that's going to tickle you, Gary.
I put a link to our Share Your Ideas for Sentinel in the private chat. For some reason, I can't actually put it in the regular chat.
I will do it. Let's see here. Copy link. Let me. That's a long one. Let me create a short link real quick, and I'll put it in so everybody has it. So keep talking amongst yourselves. I'm going to create a short link that we can post up to everybody.
I can assure you that the page that Rod is going to put the link on, we do look at this. I look at this quite often because it's my job, and I do my job very well, I hope.
And if you notice on the first one on that page, the thing that has the most upvotes, I drove that one, by the way. Yes. Andrea put it up there, and I drove that one. It was looked at. I don't know if it's ever gonna come through, but I'll see.
The appropriate teams have been notified of that one. I can guarantee you that because I did that one myself.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
I got a technical question for you.
Okay.
The unified audit log. What is compared to the Office 360 or the Office 365 connector, data connector? I forget the actual name. Does that pull across everything that's inside the unified audit log that you get in compliance or purview that you would expect from SharePoint, Teams, and everything else? Because what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are trying to dump the unified audit log out and then send it out to a third-party SIM versus using the data connector. And then, I mean, they're even dumping it out to get sign-in logs, which is like, okay, sign-in logs, really? But I can understand somewhat on the Teams and SharePoint and Exchange-related information. So is that in the Office data connector, the same thing that you would get from UAL? Or what is your opinion on UAL and getting that into Sentinel, or just leaving it to pull from there for the customers?
I'm not sure if that's being pulled into Sentinel, but I do believe, like you're saying, it should be. I mean, if we can get as much information, I mean, we should have the option to have it come in just to provide the customers with as many options as possible. Let me take a look at the latest one here. Yeah, I'm not seeing it listed as a table, but hey, a good link that you can go to as a feature request.
So, but they have the,
No.
I mean, they even push MDE stuff out into Unified Audit Log. I'm like, really? So there's a data connector called, if you just go to the data connector for Office 365 data connector. I think that's pushing, I've not checked it out yet. I was trying to make sure I didn't have save myself some time here, that's probably pulling in what you would see in Unified Audit Log specifically for Teams and SharePoint and Exchange, but not all the other junk. Because a lot of people are being trained on the business email compromise area that they basically skip over Sentinel. Sentinel is not even discussed, right? And they're all focused on UAL, which I was really
because they're wanting to trace emails, right?
No, they're looking like who opened files, so like on a data breach, who had access to what files, right, and so on, which is fine. And they're going after, like I said, sign-in logs and all that stuff, which I was surprised by. It still seems like these people don't understand that identity in Microsoft 365 is the same as Azure AD. It's amazing that they can't connect those things in there. So I'm just wondering if that data connector pulls across the UAL stuff related specifically to, I know that they're not doing Teams yet. If you look on the connector page, I know that
Teams is being.
Oh, actually, Teams is lit up
Yeah.
now. I thought
Yeah.
that was not.
Teams, and that also SharePoint also includes OneDrive, by the way. So the files,
right.
if they're using Office 365, the file information will be in there.
So I'm wondering if people really need it, because basically it's being trained, go to UAL versus Sentinel. And if they can just set these connectors, set this one specific connector and get the same information, then why are they sending it out to a third party SIM? I'm just seeing that being taught out in the wild to do that.
Yeah, so
it's driving me crazy.
So that's a good point, right? And I kind of see that and hear that quite a bit, where we have these tables and we expose certain data, but sometimes there are certain columns that aren't exposed right away, or it's just not been requested, or maybe I don't know. For whatever
having a UAL to Office 365 data connector comparison,
right,
for SharePoint, for those three categories would be great to justify them not doing that extra work.
Well, and that's great feedback, because, like I said, that's come up quite a bit, where customers expect X, type of data, and it's not there, right? And so we kind of make that request, and that data shows up eventually. The data is there; it's just not, where it needs to be in Sentinel. So we just have to enable that as a feature. I don't know who is doing construction. Frank, is that you? I mean, Rod, is that you?
No, it's not me. I think it's Frank.
Oh, Frank? Are you doing construction at your house?
There's a lot of noise.
Hello.
I'm looking through our questions here real quick. See if there's anything that we want to talk about before we kind of close down for the evening.
Carl, what's like the most common hurdle that you see customers putting on, other than team management, change management, hurdle that you see customers putting themselves, pain that customers are inflicting on themselves for no reason? Is it trying to run at the same time, the migration, or is it just not the use case? Is there anything specifically that you're like?
Yeah, I think like it goes back to something that we talked a little bit about before, but the just trying to migrate everything, it's not necessary, right? Like, take an opportunity that you're migrating from one SIM to another. Take an opportunity to really say, what is it that I need, right? And so I think I've seen this multiple times where customers just port everything over, and then all of a sudden it's like, they can't figure out what they're trying to do. There's massive bills, it's not necessary. And I think just taking a moment to really sit and ask, is this necessary? What are we getting from this? Did we ever actually get anything from this in our previous SIM? Or is it just because somebody created this, collection at one point and they thought that we needed it? So I think it's a good time to question everything. So, but I think that would be one of the things that I've seen. I don't know if Gary has any other thoughts from his experience either before Microsoft as well.
No, it's about the same thing. Or they go from on-premises gathering everything, and they try to do that in Sentinel, realize they have a huge bill they weren't expecting, and then don't understand why.
Yeah. Yeah, there is kind of a level of due diligence that has to be done first, right? Because it is different. A lot of folks, when they, potentially this individual migrating to Azure, you kind of get a sense, a lot of customers do, that everything works absolutely exactly as it does on-prem as it does in the cloud, which it can. But you want to kind of take a step back and determine whether or not you need to do that. You need to do due diligence. You need to inventory your data, figure out what's necessary, what's not, because you just don't want to do just a straight lift and shift, because there's a lot of unnecessary stuff. For example, One of the nastiest things that I think Microsoft ever invented was group policy, which it's super awesome for management. But over 10 years, a customer using group policy, there's policies that negate other policies. And then you start migrating to the cloud and trying to do the same things, the same type of management, you figure out, oh my goodness, we have, we had such a problem, didn't realize it. This is a step. This is a time for a lot of customers to like start fresh, do things a little bit different, do it a lot better, right? Because again, things have kind of amassed over the past, 20, 25 years of doing things a certain way. So
we have a question in the chat here. So AADIP and UEBA, which is now just called EBA, right? Doesn't work for B2C. So that makes sense. AADIP with identity protection needs a specific level of licensing. Plus, I think B2C, which I haven't worked with in a while, is definitely kind of a different different area anyways to deal with. And do you see entity behavior analytics ever utilizing those IDs if you can get those logs in to do the analysis? Or is it still going to always be directly linked back to the specific tenant Azure AD for what they're working with?
Right. That's something I have to think about. B2C in a couple situations that I've worked with, it's been higher ed folks, right, using kind of this B2C model, and they are using Sentinel. The UABA stuff, I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to go back and check. Something I have to think about.
Well, with entity behavior, we are now adding on-premises Active Directory as a preview.
That's right.
So
yeah.
It's not out of the realm of possibility of adding other ones as well, like B2C. Not saying we are, but it's a possibility.
Awesome. So, Kara, you've worked with Sentinel since its inception, or since its public release, at least.
Yeah.
And by the way, September is the we're coming up on September. That will be 3 years, public release, which is pretty awesome. Over the course of working with it for the past 3 years, what's like the coolest thing that you can think of for Sentinel that you've seen customers be able to take advantage of?
Man,
what's your favorite thing?
Well, all right. So I think it's grown so much, right? And I think there's some stuff that we've actually talked about, which I think is really helpful for the customers. And maybe it sounds a bit fluffy, but like the whole MITRE tactic thing, it is helpful in giving direction. I think the workbooks is super helpful. You can do so much with workbooks, more than you know, right? And I think that it gives you the insight that you need into your data. So there's a lot of customization that you can do. There's lots of different, you can have stuff like embedded. There's so much information that you can actually do in a workbook, and that gives you the insights that you need. And you can create them for teams and whatnot. So I think workbooks is probably underrated for what it really can do for you.
And what powers workbooks?
Team Azure? What do you mean?
KQL.
Oh, it's KQL. Oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah. Sure. It goes back to your KQL. Which is why
I'm always trying to bait people to say it. So yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, sure.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. KQL is all over. It's all over the place. So yeah,
it is.
It's important.
I'm glad you mentioned workbooks. I'm glad you mentioned workbooks because I would rather read a comic book than a novel, and workbooks are just that thing, right? It's the visualizations. They're awesome, and managers love visualizations, Power BI, workbooks, all that good kind of stuff. It's one thing to be really geeky and look at those columns and rows of data, which I absolutely love, but it's another thing to just, really enjoy kind of the visual aspect, be able to see things a little bit differently, a little bit better, I think, to see what it looks like. So that's pretty awesome. I'm glad that workbooks are awesome. I'm sure there are a lot of other folks at Microsoft are happy that you said workbooks.
I'm sure there are. I mean, there's loads. I mean, I can't get into all of it, but that's one thing that popped.
Well, Matt, Matt Lowe, he was
Yes.
on the show, right? He's
very passionate about workbooks.
Yes, he is. So,
Yes.
He's been on a show in the past.
Did he have his video on?
Who's that?
Did he have his video on? He doesn't ever use his video.
He did.
Did he? He did?
I'll have to go back and watch that one.
Yeah, we'll go look at that one. Who else? Jing, who's now left us, but Jing
He's
was a
also
good
done a lot with workbooks as
workbook
well.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably the best I've ever seen for animations in PowerPoint. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Oh.
He's handed them all off to Gary now. Gary's now
There you go. So
the
Gary's the
keeper
animation guy.
of Jing's PowerPoints.
Okay, that's awesome.
I can barely do a stick figure.
Well, I can do that. I'll show you how to do that later. I can make a stick figure in KQL. I swear.
I'm sure you can.
All right. Anyone with any other questions for Kara? Or Kara, you have any parting words you'd like to leave with us?
No, this was fun. I came in without anything prepared, so let's just go with it.
Well, you did great. I thought
Thanks.
it was extremely interesting. It's actually good, for our audience to get to know you. I think you're an awesome person. So, and
Thank you.
I say that just so you'll be nice to Gary.
And I say that because she's my manager.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right.
Very cool.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining in, and for also those that will be listening in during the replay and the audio podcast. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm out for 2 weeks after Friday, so I won't be here for the next 2 weeks. Edward and Brody will be back. Hopefully somebody will take my role next time. I don't know who that will be, but maybe it'll be Gary. Gary can be Rod next time. Who knows? So
Enjoy your vacation.
Well, thank you. I will. I'm sure I will. I'll try real hard.
You'll be in my state.
I will. So I don't know. Yeah, how that works, but don't report me or anything. I'm a good person. I promise. All right. So thanks everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.